Family, it's good to see you again. Welcome to another host of Financial Freedom. I am your host and accompaniment on this journey as we move forward in trying to do better and live better every day that we possibly can. This was actually launched as a part of Hope TV on March 19th, 2020. We went from one program to 35 programs after your 10 million views in just 65 days. So here we are. And now, if you could do me a favor, in order to continue those views, please like and share the video. Every like helps, and every share definitely counts. You can find us on multiple platforms. Roku. You can find us under the hashtag of handle of Hope TV. All caps, one word. So in advance of everything I just asked you to do, thank you in advance. Family, this show's topic has been looming beneath many discussions about race and class. It's focused around systemic poverty, and we're going to talk a little bit about generational wealth too. Our guest is spectacular. She's the CEO of Government Procurement Innovators, also known as GPI. She's trained over 350 individuals since opening her business in 2015. She's done this through her 8-week boot camp classes. She's also a federal procurement strategist and a certified contact specialist. She's won over $15 million through the SBA's 8A Business Development Program. She's a former business opportunity specialist, and she's guided many 8A firms in obtaining multi-million-dollar contracts. She's conducted over 800 seminars and counseled over 10,000 businesses through workshops. Her motto is, each one teach one. In order for us to understand the game, we must learn the game. Thank you, Miss Paula Watts, the expert for this show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's all about spreading the word. And I like to always say I've started my own grassroots movement since I left the government and been on this journey.
And it's been a switch. I can only imagine how much has been the difference in going from that kind of environment with the government into trudging through helping small businesses get started. I can only imagine
Well,
what it's like to counsel visionaries.
well, it's a shift, and I think that's where the biggest challenge comes within our community. We've been trained to be laborers. So if you think
Mm,
about how we were actually brought here, we were brought here to for free labor and to
right,
manage the land. So I realized that early on that America is about capitalism and it's all
right.
about the labor and the land. That's where America makes its money. And understanding even going through college and education system, they're training you to work for someone else. I've had MBAs that have come through my program. I have a whole host of dentists now that are actually beginning to see how they can get into government contracting because they
Wow.
realize no one is teaching them how to run a business. It doesn't make sense to me. Mhm.
I've heard people say before that our education system is really built for the industrial age. It's really built
Mhm.
to, like you said, put us into labor, not necessarily teach us how to be owners and
Correct.
business owners, but more so
Mhm.
teach us how to be on time, how to follow instructions, not
Yes.
necessarily how to think critically or anything you need to run a business.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Looking over your incredible list of accomplishments, when you're talking to people in our community about moving forward with a business, or if somebody even approaches you like, Miss Watts, what do I need to think about if I'm thinking about launching a business? It seems like such a transformed mindset you have, because you went from, I don't want to just be a laborer, I want to be an owner, I want to transfer this information, I want to teach people. That's a much different mindset than somebody who just went through school and knows how to follow instructions.
Oh,
Where would
absolutely.
people start?
Well, they have to start and having the dream, or sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? You've heard that before.
Right.
And understanding that you're the only one that can control your destiny. God gave me my gift at 25. I'm
Okay.
originally from Asheville, North Carolina. After college, my first job was in Washington, D.C., with companies that were Black owned, that was a part of this program that allowed businesses to get millions of dollars of contracts from the federal government. So I ended up going through six companies on one contract that was a part of that. But
Hmm.
before then, I realized that I wasn't satisfied with the 3% raise. I wanted to control my income. So by 35, I opened up my first business. The first year in business,
Wow.
I received the first $1 million contract. The second
Wow.
year in business, I applied into this program that I'll go into more depth about a little later on, and received my second $3 million contract. And I grew the business pretty quickly to close to $15 million in contract with 40 employees. And that's where my challenge became, because the business was event planning. Most small businesses start a business on their skill set. Once I received that first $1 million contract, my mentor pulled me aside and he said, "Why are you pigeonholing yourself into event planning?" And when he said that, something really clicked based on the
Hmm.
companies that I had gone through and looking at their business model. So I immediately changed my business model where it was no longer based on my skill set. I had
Mm.
employees. And so by 35, I mean 36, I had my first $1 million. Second year, 15 million. I mean, another 3 million into the 8A program, and grew it pretty quickly. By 40, I was a multimillionaire. And that's where
Wow.
the challenge became. So everybody wants to get to the mountaintop, but no one's prepared to what happens when you get to that mountaintop. I
Let me
had a
ask,
bad
let
business.
me ask you this because you said a whole lot right there. Hold on a minute. You said a whole lot.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
you were getting government contracts for your business. Is
mhm.
that correct? So
That is correct.
you said a whole lot. So help me understand when it comes to procuring those contracts. Tell me, what is that? What is, when it comes to government procurement innovators, when it comes to getting those contracts, how did you even get there? Because for the time as a black woman in this field, I can only imagine who you had to beat out to just get there.
Absolutely not, because this program that's for minority owned businesses is designed to
Oh,
build your business. It allows
got
you
you.
for 9 years to go to any federal agency and they can award contracts up to $4 million with no competition. Everyone up in
Wow.
DC were part of that program. So
Wow.
when
Okay.
I left DC and came here, I realized no one knew that program. When I look at the state of Georgia, and when I was at SBA, there was only 200 businesses that were part of that program. So what I was seeing was businesses from DC, where there are 1,700 businesses up in that area, coming here, winning contracts left and right. There's no competition. When I
Why do
look
you
at
think
the
that
state,
was?
because nobody is sharing this information. People
Mm,
assume things about the role of SBA. SBA, and those of you who don't know who SBA is the Small Business Administration. Their
okay.
role is to manage all small businesses nationally.
Mm,
And they have wonderful programs, excuse me, They have wonderful programs, but they're not necessarily effective in marketing those programs. So, my
Mm,
passion and my desire is to get as many of us in these programs so that we can create multimillionaires. And that's how we begin to
mm,
take back our community because now we can hire and employ people
right,
on these contracts, and that's
right,
money coming back into the community.
right,
That makes
right. That's a lot going on right there. So you come down here. You mentioned you came down here and you saw the contracts were being held by people elsewhere. And so in a relatively short amount of time, you became a multimillionaire.
No,
I've
that was the
heard,
first business. That was the first business. I had to end up closing that business because I had a bad business partner. I had a business partner who felt like he could run all his personal expenses through the business. And the last straw for me was a $3,000 pinstripe suit with his initials going down the pinstripe. I ended up having my
that
assistant
is hilarious.
having my assistant to do an audit on his credit card, and he in turn takes her in
Wow,
the elevator and threatens her. I terminate him, and then he conspired with two employees to sue me for sexual harassment, me and the other partner. So I went through
wow,
2 years of attorney fees, $125,000 in attorney fees, $100,000 to buy him out. I had no more operating cash, so I transferred $7 million of my contracts to another 8A firm. And what that did was really push me to my passion because I realized no one was training us on how to run a business on that level and
I couldn't
understanding
even
that.
imagine having to move that money and assets and make those appropriate moves to protect your entity and then being able to fire him and then protect yourself from him and then make sure that you had another business set up to funnel the that's a lot of business savvy right
Well,
there.
no, I'd say this was part of God's journey for me. What I thought I was going to be in that first business was not His order. So when I had to
Okay.
close the business, I actually had almost $400,000 of debt on my back. And so
Wow.
God said, you're going to volunteer at SCORE. SCORE is a resource partner of SBA, and they
Okay.
serve as mentors to small businesses. And so I realized again, there was an absence with our community, even with SCORE counselors. Most of the SCORE counselors were elderly white men who were executives. I was the first Black female SCORE counselor in that district office. And I'm very
Wow.
strategic. I volunteered there for 2 years, and then I ran out of money. So I applied for a position at SBA. Now, what that did is give me the inside scoop of the government. And my
Okay.
position,
Okay.
my position was to service the businesses once they got into the 8A program. Um, and so I began to study SBA. I studied their operations. I was responsible for 40 businesses each year that was in my
Wow.
portfolio to make sure they understood the game and had access to these contracts. But being a government employee, you sort of um, pigeonholed or you're limited to information that you can share. So I ended up
Mhm.
leaving SBA in 2015 and realized what was truly missing. And what was missing was no one was teaching us how to run a business. Everyone was coming to the SBA. I want grant money. And do you have money to start a business? That never makes sense to me. Why are you going to borrow money to start a business and you're already in debt before you even made any money? And
Right.
understanding that America makes money off of labor, that's how I designed my business model. So I literally created a program regardless of where you are, even if you've been in business 17 years, even if you're starting now. I have 20-year-olds that are now taking the class so that you all will get the knowledge way before I did. You learn on my pay and learn how to become a CEO. And what I've found through this process that has really been the biggest challenge is getting us the confidence that I can run a company. And I always like to use the analogy of the basketball team. Everybody wants our children to become Stefan or LeBron. And I'm always asking people, well, if Stefan and LeBron is making $200 million a year, well, how much is the owner making? Nobody ever talks
Right,
about the owner.
right.
So if the owner is, if LeBron is making $200 million, you better believe that owner is making a whole lot of money. And they don't know
A
anything
whole
about
lot.
basketball. Their goal is to build a dream team. So it's the same model in a business. I use business as a sport. I played basketball, so it made sense. So you just build your team, and that's how you're making your money. You're making your money off of the labor. That
So
makes sense.
you said a whole lot. So, and I'm just listening to your comments. There's so much in your comments. So my question becomes, for people 35 and under, 25 and under, you said you have
Mhm.
25, 20-year-olds in the program who are looking to understand how to become an entrepreneur, how to become an owner. And you're right. I think you make a great point in the sense that we see the glorified jobs. We see the LeBron, we see the Jordan, we see the Stephon. Um,
Mhm.
how do we begin? I guess my first question would be, you've already mentioned it. We will begin by education. But in your mind, if we were to place more of an emphasis on exposing these other types of jobs, because I had never heard of procurement until you came across my radar. And I'm like,
Get out of here.
I've never had the, I think I may have heard of it one time in the barbershop. Somebody may have brought it up. But
Mm.
I've never even thought about procurement until I began to read up about you. And I'm like, yo, there are so many different professions and jobs where you don't see people of color, and
Mhm.
especially black people of color at that. Where do we
Mhm.
look? Where do we start when it comes to exposing these kind of professions to a generation like mine, or even younger than myself?
My goal is to get it into the college, understanding that that's where it has to start. I think my generation and my parents' generation, they were all emphasizing get an education and then get a job. We got a job, and we wanted you all to get the same type of education. And education is still key because that shows me as an employer that you have the desire to start and complete something.
Right.
But what you saw, we were tricked. We got government jobs, we got corporate jobs. So all you all saw was going to work and getting stressed out and not liking and having to go in there and deal with Mr. Charlie.
Right.
So you all haven't had any models. So for me, as a 25-year-old up in Washington, D.C., that's all I saw was black business owners. I was like, I want to be one.
Mhm.
So I think that's where it starts. We have to take the shift. And so what I'm seeing now, interesting with the students that are registering in my program now, is I have a lot of the mothers that are bringing the children. Like I'm bringing my son in there. I'm bringing my daughter in here because they want them to get it early, and it's an effective program. I have people competing on contracts after 8 weeks and
Wow.
winning. But you have to understand the process. You have to understand what an LLC is. Most people will start a business and someone tell them to get an LLC, but not necessarily understanding the legal ramifications of those entities. And so what I did was take everything from that first business so you wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. I got sued. My labor attorney went through my personnel manual, and those employees were signing off on their life, but I didn't care at that point. Had I known before, then I would have been in a better position to protect myself legally. Mhm.
That is wow. So you have parents bring so and just humor me here, but I just need you to break down a couple of terms so that I can stay with you.
Okay.
What is procurement?
It's government contracts. The government procures goods and services. The federal government is the largest buyer of goods and services in the world. And the
Wow. Okay.
beauty of the federal contracts is you don't have to be locally to win that contract. I can win a contract in Hawaii as long as I can staff and find the right people to serve on those contracts.
Wow.
Mhm.
So it's about getting those contracts. So
Mhm.
with so much you just said, so parents are bringing their children in to learn how
Mhm.
to get those contracts early.
Correct. Correct.
So in talking about dismantling systemic poverty, part of that is knowing how to tap that vein of money that we didn't
Absolutely.
even know existed at one point.
Yes. And, and I think and you're absolutely right. I think the we haven't connected our tax dollars with these contracts for one. Mhm.
Mm,
Meaning, in that first job, I was an event planner, and most of the events I was planning were from out of the White House. I did a lot of with
okay.
the senior administrations. And I was not only just planning those events, I started to the listening to the topics of those events. And I started
Okay.
putting pieces together early. I was like, okay, this is how this game works. This is our tax dollars that now goes back to Congress, right? And then
Right.
Congress determines how that money is spent. Once
Mm,
Congress determines each year how that money is spent, it then filters to the agencies, the federal agencies. And then the federal agency's job is to manage and disperse the money based on how Congress has dictated that money should be spent. Now, the
okay.
money is broken into two pots, meaning the agencies will get the money from Congress, and then they're going to either create contracts for particular services they may need. They need landscaping, they need barbers, they need janitors, they need musicians, they need everything. Those are for profit contracts. You're going to make money off of it. The other side of it is the grant side. That's where our community is or more involved in. I had a contract where were we had to process grant applications. And
Okay.
understanding that process, I was like, okay, this is how this side works because I realized none of the HBCUs were winning grants because they were writing and responding to those grants from an educational point of view rather than a business point of view. So grants
Mm,
are geared towards nonprofits. The government is looking for you to provide a service. Meals on Wheel, they'll get a grant. They're delivering meals, and they can quantify how many meals they've delivered, how many people they service. Whereas on the
right.
contract side, the government is just paying you to do the job. They don't care about those types of metrics. So for me, understanding that game and understanding America, and it's all about the taxes. Y'all think about it. Why do you think it's only 1%? That they always talk about the 1% because they understand the tax game. So,
Right.
me understanding both sides of it, I started a nonprofit as well because I knew when my for profit started making money, I need a tax shelter. So now I'm going to disperse that money into my nonprofit. But I established that nonprofit entity,
Hold on a second.
brought
Hold on a second, because you breaking down some real game right here. Hold on. You just told us you got the money, but you needed a shelter. That portion right there, I need you to break that portion down because that you just gave some game. I need to know what that is. So what
well,
is that shelter gonna do?
it's a tax shelter. What's not taught
Mm,
to us is write-offs. That's the whole purpose of going into business. You get to write
okay.
off expenses. You're writing those
Okay.
off. And you're not going to have to pay taxes on that revenue that you've collected on that for-profit side. So now
Mm,
I know at the end of the year if I have a tax I have a tax liability, I can take some of that money now and write a check to my nonprofit and don't have to pay taxes on that money. Hmm? Hmm. That makes sense?
oh, so got it. Okay, so yes, that is a sweet piece of game right there. Okay, so you have both a for-profit and nonprofit. You have a tax liability. You say this is not gonna. I don't want to deal with that. Let me go ahead and transfer this over here, and it becomes a tax write-off.
It's a
Oh,
tax write-off.
that is
And I
beautiful. That explains a lot
also
about why you have 501(c)(3)s as well.
and
Understood.
I also knew that on that nonprofit side, I made the mission broad enough so that if I wanted to get grants under the 501(c) nonprofit side, I could get grants. So now I'm going to get grants and contracts. I think I have the best of both worlds.
You working. So let me ask you a question. If this seems like such a, and you explain it so well, so correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like such an easy paradigm that you've broken down right here. Why don't more black people and black businesses know that? Why don't we know that we can have a tax shelter for our money? Why don't we know the what happened that our disconnect from the knowledge?
Information, no one is sharing. We've been trained since we've been brought here to compete with each other. I'll get mine, you get yours. And I am breaking that through this process with my program and making sure that businesses understand how to collaborate. My goal is to have at least 10 businesses, once they understand the language and the process, to compete for the $200 million contracts. We have enough talent within our community that we've been giving away for pennies for so long. I'm sick of it.
Mm, yeah, yeah, no doubt. Is there a if you had to give in 5 minutes a few points to business owners and say, this is what I really want you to understand moving forward, even if it was just getting started, if they were in the middle, at the end of the process. Um, there's so much more I want to ask you. We might, so the second half of this, we may have to get into some more stuff because I really want to talk to you some more. But if you had to give a few tips to business owners on getting started, what? Let me ask. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. I'm excited. That's what's happening. So let me ask this: resources. If if I wanted to go out tomorrow and figure out how to start a business and where to go, if I was coming your direction, what resources would you put in my lap to say this is where you start your research at?
It's a process. It's an investment in yourself. What's been interesting is that throughout this training, I've always awarded scholarships. But what I
Mm.
found with those who have accepted the scholarships, they're not committed. So
Break down
as far
commitment. What do I need to be committed to if I come to Miss Watts? What do I need to be committed to off the rip?
pardon, what was the question? What was the
If I
question?
come to Miss Watts, if I come to Miss Watts and she says, "Here's a scholarship for you," what do I need to be committed to taking that scholarship?
To to attending the class, to participating in the lab and homework assignments, because all of the lab and homework assignments are going to be applicable towards your business. Everything that we're doing is practical. And you have to be committed. So what I found is people half in, half out. They're not committed. So my thing is, what I've had to change my philosophy this year is that one, you have to invest in yourself.
Right.
Two, if you cannot complete this 24 weeks of training, you're not ready to run a business. And it's okay.
Mm.
Everybody's not meant to be CEOs, and it's okay. But you can also take this knowledge, and that's my goal for you all, the millennials, the 20 to 23-year olds, the 25-year olds. I've had them take this training, and now they're working for government contractors making $80,000, $90,000. So it's all
Wow.
about the knowledge. It's all about the knowledge.
Miss Watts, thank you so much. I definitely want to continue this conversation. We're gonna have us a little bit of a part two, but I'm a call a day right now. Thank you so much for being here. Where can we find you, Miss Watts?
If you go to my website, www.gpiwin.com, that's gpiwin.com. And one of my students said she felt the acronym stood for God's Plan I Win.com. So I
I
accepted
love it.
that.
I love it. That's hot. I love it. Thank you for being with us, Miss Watts. We're gonna talk some more. I've family. Thank you for being with me here on Financial Freedom. I've been your host, Derek Brown. If you need to, you can find me on Instagram at DB Authentic. And I've had a pleasure talking to Miss Watts. And again, you can find her at www.gpiwin.com. Thank you, family. Have a great day. Be safe out there.
Thank you again for having me.